Hi, everybody. My name's Kathy Kreitler, and I'm filling in tonight for Iris Vincent. And she got called away at the last minute, but as you all know, she was my Girl Scout leader, and she taught me to be prepared. So we're prepared, and we're going to go ahead with tonight's What's New. So welcome to What's New. And I have with me tonight the mayor. And later on, we're going to talk with Vernetta Melton, who's on our board for domestic violence. And we have one of my survivors here too, Miss Brittany Horton, and we'll talk with them later. But first tonight, we're going to talk with the mayor, Brian Kheim. And I had questions for him personally about the 287G that recently came up at a Board of Aldermen meeting. So I've invited him to kind of explain it to us more in depth so that we as citizens can understand what's going on more in our community.
Sure.
So Brian, if you can, our Mayor Kheim,
you're good.
if you could explain more to us about how that's going to work in our community.
Sure. Thanks for inviting me. I know, you and I shared a little, a few emails, and I got a nice email from you. And I know this has been controversial, we'll say. I think some of the controversy is related to what we've been seeing in other areas, and I think that that's fair. I think I understand the concern that some of our residents have shared. It makes sense to me. We've all seen kind of the unrest and chaos that's been going on kind of across the country, really, but really isolated to a few different cities, and I don't think anybody wants that for our community, and myself certainly, and nobody on the Board of Aldermen, I can guarantee you that. But I think some of the concern maybe could be tied up in some misunderstanding of really the intent of what we're doing. So the 287G is an agreement that the government has offered to local municipalities, law enforcement agencies, that is a partnership or a cooperation agreement. That it doesn't specify that our city is taking on ICE operations. It does not mean that we all of a sudden become sworn and ordained immigration officers. What it simply means is that we will assist in our Department of Homeland Security across a variety of different sectors. This isn't just isolated to immigration. This is across drug trafficking, sex trafficking, human trafficking, organized crime. This allows our department to get access to databases that we otherwise would not be able to. So if we are investigating a crime or investigating a potential suspect of a potential crime, that we could then cross-check those databases to determine if there is more here that maybe we don't know about. And that's information that we would not have been able to ascertain without this agreement, without the ability to access those databases. And that is the main reason why our chief brought this agreement to us. It's an agreement that he believes is going to help them keep our community safer. It offers us the ability to dig deeper into the people that we may be arresting and determine if, hey, is there more to this than maybe what's just on the surface that we were looking at. Now, there is obviously an immigration component to that, but the immigration component is very limited, and I want to stress that very clearly. We cannot and will not actively go out and enforce immigration law in the community. And what I mean by that is we are not going to just stop people with a perceived notion that somebody might be illegal. We are not going to go on coordinated projects or missions or raids or anything.
Door to door.
Yes, 100%. That's not what this is. That's not how we are approaching this, and that's not how we will approach it. We have no interest in becoming immigration officers. I think we've seen just from what we've seen in other communities, we don't want any part of that. That's not part of why we're doing this. And if we do uncover somebody during the course of an investigation of another crime that happens to be here illegally, then The extent of what we do is we notify Homeland Security, we transport that person to the county jail, and then that's it. After that, we don't take that case any further. It's out of our jurisdiction at that point. It's become a federal matter at that time. All we're signing on to is that we will cooperate and help our Department of Homeland Security in those endeavors. So only in the course of a commission of another crime or our investigation of another crime would this ever come into play with somebody in this community, with an interaction with one of our law enforcement officers. So it's very limited in scope. There are avenues within that agreement where you can go further into this. There are incentives that could be offered to pay departments per apprehension. That is, we have no interest in that. We have no desire to get into that model whatsoever. I think that builds a lack of trust in law enforcement in the community. I think what you're seeing with the way that these operations have been, I guess, handled in other cities, it's eroded the public trust in the law enforcement. And maybe not necessarily at a local level, but surely at the federal level. And our officers, I think, have a great rapport with our community. I mean, Kathy, I think you've come here in this very room and sang their praises on a number of occasions, and I know you and Chief keep a pretty open dialogue.
He's on our board.
There you go, and he should be. And I think, and what I tried to offer the community, or what I tried to ask of the community at our most recent board meeting, was to trust our law enforcement officials to make you proud and to handle these situations in a way that would make the entire town proud. And I believe they'll do that. I think they make us proud every day. I think they do a very, very good job. And with limited resources comparably to our peers. And Chief has done a fantastic job of changing the tone, changing the dynamic within the department. The officers are very, very happy. The morale is high. We are fully staffed. They enjoy their work. They're engaging in the community in a way that they haven't been before. I think their social media feed has been humorous at times, which I think is nice to add a little bit of levity
and
to
they
some of all
highly
this.
respect the chief. They really respect him and they like him. I really pick up on that more so than I've seen in the past. They really like him.
I think that's a really good point too. And Chief, since we brought him on, and he's been here, I believe, just a little over a year now. He came in with a clear vision of what he wanted out of the department, and his vision is clear in that, and he does not want to deviate from that. And to take this and to go down a path where you're really actively engaging the community in immigration operations, where you're, I reference this, and I totally agree. There's a pay-for-play model in there. There's a model where if your department picks up this many, or that you'll get paid per person. I'm sorry, that's a bounty, and that will not happen. It will not happen on our watch here. That's so far away from what we're trying to do with the community and how we want our law enforcement to engage. We want them to be present and to be visible, but we don't want our residents to be fearful. And
that's a concern that
striking a balance.
Yeah,
there.
That's a concern that I have, because you see that in other cities where the kids are afraid to go to school, the parents are afraid to go to work. They have mistrust in the government officials and in the government period, where they want to stay home. And you see where, like, clergy will take them where they want to go places. Their neighbors go grocery shopping for them because they don't want to go out, and that kind of thing. And I think that's part of what I saw at the Board of Aldermen meeting, is people are afraid. They don't want that far St. Genevieve. And that's why I contacted you originally, and that's why I wanted to have this discussion with you, is for you to explain what's going to happen in St. Genevieve. And I read over some of the material that I can find on that. And some of it involves reporting. So that reporting, that'll be in the chief's report to the city that he does monthly.
Correct.
So we'll be able to see, I'm asking while I'm telling.
Yes.
But I mean, we'll be able to see how many detainees they turn over to the county jail. Correct. And that kind of thing. So we'll be, as citizens, we'll be able to monitor what's going on there too.
That's
we'll be able
correct.
to see that for ourselves.
Yes, and I don't know if you've looked at the agenda or the meeting.
I always
notes
look
there.
at it.
So,
That's
but
just me, though.
You will see.
Just so the public knows they can observe it too.
Sure. And I get a sneak peek on all that.
Yeah.
But the chief has a report that he'll give tomorrow night, and we've added that line item. I can tell you it's 0.
Mm-hmm.
We highly anticipate that number to be 0. This isn't something that we are actively working. If it's something that we uncover through the course of their normal operations, then yes, we have a duty to report it under the agreement. But outside of that's not what we're here to do. It would be a step backwards for our law enforcement, and I think the strides they've made within our community and interacting with them, building that trust, for us to go a different direction with that. And I think the agreement's been signed for roughly 2 months now, going on 3. And from what I see, from what we've observed, and from the reports, there's been no change in that number. And I don't think
how many officers have been educated or trained with the ICE training?
None to my knowledge.
Well, they're supposed to be, what I've read.
So they're not going to become Homeland Security officers. That's not the goal behind this. Now, Chief is a Homeland Security officer, and he has been for several years. And that was actually one of the reasons why we brought Chief on, because of that experience. You get to be around, and you get to be in those, you're in those circles, and I think it does give you a different perspective on law enforcement. Mm-hmm. And of course, I don't know that. I've never lived that.
Right.
So, but Chief's experience in that regard, that's the best of the best. Mm-hmm. As far as that goes. Chief's done undercover operations for years, across a lot of different fields, whether it's drugs or organized crime.
I think it was DEA or something, yeah.
So he knows what he's doing. And Chief and I have had some very candid conversations about this. And, we had hard questions for him about it. And he understood that, because I think he understood that this was obviously something that was going to garner some attention, and he wanted to make it very clear to us that this is not about us picking on people in the community, and it is not about us actively going out and trying to destroy that relationship and that trust that we built. This is about simply trying to help the department with some additional tools and resources. There's obviously there could be funding for the department as part of that agreement, but it is not based on performance. It would be, a one-time payment into the department that we could use it for whatever.
So is there funding that the city has received or will receive that you foresee? We
have received funding for that, and we use that to purchase patrol cars that we were going to purchase through our budget anyway. So in effect, we've kicked our budget year, we've kicked those purchases out another budget year, which is very helpful to the department. That's when you're running a full-time police department in a town of this size with limited resources that we have. An extra little bit into your budget, 2 patrol cars, that's highly coveted for us. There's very few ways that we can obtain funding like that. And Chief has done a really good job of seeking out grants, seeking out ways to stretch his budget that are creative. This is maybe another way to look at that. I understand that that's going to be met with some criticism, and I get that. But I come here in transparency. You and I have always had very open dialogue, and that's my goal with the entire community is, if you have good, bad, and different, I'm happy to talk with you about it. I'm happy to have a conversation. I'm happy to tell you exactly what I can tell you. Obviously there are things that we discuss in closed session I can't, but if there's something that's open and available and you have questions about it, I've never shied away from those conversations. I'm happy to have them. And I would urge anybody, and I've received a number of emails from people in the community. I appreciate that. It's like I mentioned in the meeting a couple weeks ago, I read them. It's not, I don't just,
Yeah.
I don't dismiss them. I read them. I understand it. I want to know what our people are talking about. I want to know what our residents are concerned about. And it obviously, it's
a hot topic right
Sure.
now, and we see so much going on nationwide, and that's why I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk freely and to give us an explanation of what's going on. So that, and that's why I'm asking you questions. I'm trying to think, what do people want to know, that you can answer those questions when they can get the answers, without everybody emailing you on their own.
And I mean, I think the biggest questions are, have we received funding, or will we receive funding? We have received funding. Will we receive further funding? No.
Well, I think people are afraid that it's going to be motivated by the number of people they arrest. Are they going to be motivated to arrest more people so they get more funding? I think it's the bottom line question that people have.
Yes, and that is not the case. Like I mentioned, there are ways and there are models within that 287G where you can take that model. That was not the way we chose to go about it. And the optics of that side of that, as I mentioned, that's a bounty. And that, to me, that's, like I mentioned, it just erodes the trust. It's not what we're out here to do. That does not make a meaningful impact in the safety of our community, in my opinion. I would say that about across a lot of sectors. If you're paying like that per, whatever, that's when things get really weird. And that's when you see people start to do things that are underhanded. And our chief has no interest in that. So yes, we've received funding. No, we will not receive performance-based funding or incentive-based funding as part of that agreement. We will not profile.
That's another question I was going to ask. People are afraid of the profiling.
And chief, we couldn't even get the question out. One, it's illegal. And
it is illegal, but you see that on TV where they're profiling. So it's a question.
Understood.
Have.
Yes. And honestly, I get that. And I mean, it's easy for me to look at it and say, no, I completely understand where it'd be so easy to profile without realizing you're profiling. Chief has been very, very adamant about that from the start. One, it's illegal. He will not stand for it. And we were frank with him as well that, hey, if there's anything that comes to light about that, then we're going to have a problem. And Chief knows that. And I trust Chief to operate his department with integrity and discipline and character. And I think we've seen nothing from his department and under his tenure that would lead us to believe that that's not going to be the case moving forward. There will be no change in how we approach the public or how we interact with the public. We are not going to be in masks. We are not going to be in ice gear. We are not going to be in unmasked.
I never thought to ask that.
Well, we did get asked.
Oh.
And it's a fair question.
Scary.
We're not going to be in unmarked SUVs. The patrol cars we received are our patrol cars. So they're going to look exactly like the ones you see around town. They are marked with St. Genevieve.
I hope so. I never even thought that.
Well, but I think it's a fair question.
Yeah, it is, I guess.
And that is there will be none of that. We have no interest. ICE or Homeland Security cannot contact us and say, hey, we heard about this house on this street. Can you go and round them? No, absolutely not. That's not part of this agreement. They cannot direct us on their behalf to carry out any operations. We cannot further anything. Anything that they want to do as far as Homeland Security, they're going to do it whether we want them to or not.
So if they do a traffic stop for a light that's out on the car or something, they'll ask for immigration papers at that time?
No, I mean, just as if you were stopped for the same situation or I was stopped for the same situation, I mean, they're going to ask you for your driver's license and insurance and registration or the things. If those things aren't able to be provided or further down the line, that's going to start to trigger those questions, right? Or if, say, you hand an ID, that ID comes back and it's flagged for an alias or a known or fake or something, that could lead to that.
But if you have the proper paperwork, then it goes. It's fine.
Nothing further is going to happen. And just as like I mentioned, if I'm driving home tonight and I get pulled over and I don't have a driver's license and they can't find my driver's license, then I'm going to have a problem. That's the way the law works. I mean, at some point you have to produce what they're asking. And if you can't, then that's part of this. I mean, we're supposed to follow those rules, and I get it. And I know there's nuance in all of this, but they're not going to actively just come in and say, hey, I need to see that you're
a citizen,
right? That's not the way that traffic stop would go. I mean, this is further down the line where we would even uncover that. And at that point, like I mentioned, we're not taking that case further. We're more or less just at that point making contact and letting them know what we know. And we can cross-check with databases now within the federal government that will help, maybe to determine the next step. But at that point, that's turned over, and we're no longer a part of that. We've done what we needed to do, and we are no longer a part of the next step, and whatever that may be. Any ICE detainees that are currently held in the St. Genevieve County Jail, which is not the city jail, it's the county jail. There's confusion here. Those detainees are federal prisoners that we take in as part of a federal contract. The county takes in as part of a federal contract with the government. There are very few jails that are able to house inmates while they await a court date, federal inmates. So your jail has to meet a certain criteria. It has to have, you have to have basically a good relationship and a good rapport, and you have to have the facility that is up to their level. St. Louis does not have that facility anymore. Their facility was shut down. The federal government says it's no longer suitable for them to house their detainees there. Guess where they go? They come down here. There's 500-ish people there, and those people have committed a wide variety of crimes. About a quarter of them, my understanding is, they are ICE detainees. I think maybe all of them were detained somewhere else other than St. Genevieve, and they just happen to be here. The county, to my understanding, with part of this federal contract, they can't pick and choose the inmates they're going to take. These are federal inmates. So we have a capacity of, we can handle 50 inmates at this time. They're going to send us 50 inmates. They could run the gamut from all sorts of crimes that they could have committed or have been accused of committing. And we just hold them until their court date. And then once...
Well, that's been the jail since they built it.
100%. And I'm only stressing this, and I know you know this, it's just this, there seems to be some confusion as to what's going on there and who's responsible and how those inmates are populating it. Of course, there are local people in the jail. They have committed crimes locally, and that is where the county, they are awaiting a court date. That jail is simply a stop in their path through the justice system, right? They're awaiting a court date. Their court date happens. Yeah,
a jail's different than a prison.
100%.
Yeah, a jail is waiting until they're sentenced. Once they're sentenced, and then they go to if they're guilty, they go to a prison.
Sure. And I think, questions on that, I've obviously refer them to Sheriff Stolzer, and he and I, we talk regularly, and we talk about this. We talk about these things. It's not, I want people to understand that just because they may hear me arguing on this side of this topic, it doesn't mean that I am dismissive of what they're saying. I don't think anybody can look at what's happened in, let's just use Minneapolis as an example. I don't think anybody sitting at this table or anybody sitting around any table can look at that and say that that's good, right?
That we want that.
That we want that. We don't. And nobody here, Chief, the board, I don't think anybody wants that for our community. We pride ourselves on being a pretty safe community. And we're safe because we have people like Chief and his department, Sheriff Stolzer, his department. We have people like you that are out there advocating for people that are in situations that they can't seem to find a way out of. There's a reason. It takes a village, right? In that regard. And I think I would just like for us to give Chief and his department some faith and let them operate, see how this goes, and understand that I think they're going to make people proud. I don't think they're going to notice any change in how our law enforcement interacts with the community. I don't think they're going to notice any change in how, I mean, I don't feel like people should feel unsafe here, but I know that that's easy for me to say, and I'm not going to diminish their fear if that's how they are feeling, but I don't think that anything that happens between now and, however long that I get to do this job and Chief is able, I don't think you're going to change. I don't think you're going to see any change there. Chief is very, like I mentioned, he has a vision for how he wants his department to run, and he's not going to do anything counterintuitive to that. He came in here with that. He's done everything that he told us he was going to do and more to kind of change the tenor of the department. And I'm not saying we were in a bad place, but I just think it's, you get fresh eyes, you get a fresh perspective, and you get somebody that's really seen a lot of different, he's been on the Mineral Area Drug Task Force for years, the Department of Homeland Security. He's seen a lot of stuff, and he's seen a lot of different ways to do this job, what works and what doesn't work. And you bring that into the fold. The experience there, I think we're going to lean on. I think he's going to make us proud. And I know we agree on a lot of what's been going on in Minneapolis. He doesn't agree with that. We don't agree with how that was handled. We're not pointing fingers, but I want people to hear that from my mouth too, that I understand that strife. And, one point I think that, Chief and I have also talked about, and I think it's worth maybe mentioning, is that I think an agreement like this, where there is a memorandum of understanding or cooperation that's on file, I think you could see that deter activity from actual ICE agents within our community, because they know that if there was a problem, that we would probably potentially find it or through the course of our work, that we would bring to light anything that may be a problem, an actual problem. And I think you could see that deter any further activity here, because, it's like, okay, they've signed this agreement. If there really was something going on there,
it would be less likely to move in on us.
Exactly. So I think there could be positives out of this, and I understand that may ring hollow, but I really think that there's going to be no change in how our department operates under this agreement. I understand the concern, but I really think if you give it time, I just don't think that there's going to be any issues with that. I really don't. Now, there's an argument to be made, like, why wait for a problem? But Chief is telling us that these tools are going to be important for his department, and it's our job to fill his tool chest with what he feels like he needs to give the department what they need to do their job.
Well, you got my email, and I do respect you guys, and I do think you have the best for the city at heart. So I think giving it a try, and you have to renew that every year from what I heard or what I've read. So, and he has to report monthly, so I'm sure you're going to be watched.
we told him, we said that, we want to see reports on this. We do want to know.
Well, he has to report from what I've read. But,
well, I think I don't know if he has to report it to us as the board.
He doesn't have to report it to you.
Yes.
But I would think that he would, because he has to report anyway, so.
And, we understand the agreement was signed in December. We're talking about it now. Chief wanted to talk to the board about it. He wanted to make sure that we understood what was going on. He didn't necessarily need our approval to enter into that agreement, but he wanted us to be aware, and he wanted us to have a conversation about it. And I think that speaks even more to his character. Because imagine a situation where that was signed and we didn't know about it.
I think he should talk to you about it. I'm glad he did.
Absolutely.
I think he should. That's pretty big.
It's like, we want to give Chief autonomy to run his department the way he sees fit. And, he wanted to talk to us about it. He wanted to make sure we were understanding of what was going on. And we got the chance to ask the same questions, a lot of the same questions you're asking, a lot of the same questions that, believe it or not, a lot of the same questions that we were asked a couple Thursdays ago. We asked those same questions. There were we had a very candid meeting, and Chief was very honest about what he thought about the department's role in this agreement, and we want it to be very limiting in scope. We said, and he agreed. He said, he goes, I don't want any of that. That it doesn't do us any good. It would not help us endear us to the community in the way that we want to be. We want people to be able to come to us with problems or questions and think of them as, a friend or a liaison or whatever a confidant, however you want to look at it, whatever we feel like we need from law enforcement in that moment, we want them to look across and see that person, and that's what we want them to be in that moment. And I think Chief's very understanding of that. That's what he wants. He wants the interactions to be positive and not in a accusatory way, not in a escalating way. That's just far beyond what we're trying to do from a department standpoint. And as I mentioned, I'm happy to have further conversations, and I know that this is something we can continue to discuss, and maybe a year from now when it's we talk about it again, we'll revisit it at that point, decide if it's something that we really want to continue doing. There's nothing that says that we could move on from that agreement. If we need to.
Just evaluate it and see where we're at.
It's going to be something that's constantly going to be talked about, and I don't want our citizens to take that away as we've made the decision, we're just moving on with our life, and that it's done, it's dusted.
Set in stone.
No, absolutely not. I mean, I think what local government always has to, and the way I've approached this from the start is it's a very fluid situation, right? And there is no one size fits all. I mean, our community is not the same as Perryville, and we're not the same as, name a town. We're not all towns are the same. We may have similar history, we may have similar size or demographics or whatever you're looking at, but what's best for them may not be best for us, and what's best for Festus isn't going to be best for St. Genevieve, and what's best in St. Jen's not going to be best in Perryville, and that's okay. But I think you have to look at government as it's constantly evolving. You have to take a look at what your needs are in the community, and these change. I mean, they change year to year. We've seen economic situations that come up. We've seen pandemics. There are all sorts of things that happen that necessitate a shift in how you approach certain things. It's always an open dialogue, and I think I've prided. I think our board does a great job, and I think City Hall does a great job of making sure that we're being forthright with the community. We're not
I love
hiding.
how transparent the city is. You guys are transparent with your documentation and all the different little side, like the park board and all the different boards and everything. They're all 100% transparent. You guys use St. John TV. So everybody can take part. You have your meetings in the evening where people can either come if they want to because they're not working, or they can watch it on St. John TV and they can see for themselves what's going on. And I really enjoy that you guys do that for us, because you really want us to take part. And if we can't take part, we can at least watch and see what's going on. You guys give us the documents, and everything. And I really like that you guys are so transparent.
I'm glad you said it, and I'm glad that you're finding benefit, because that's something that we've talked about ever since I took office, was just, hey, we are a small town. We are tasked with doing what is best for the people of the community. And sometimes it's not popular, and sometimes it's not pretty, and sometimes it's not fun, but it doesn't mean that it happens behind closed doors or in back rooms we are going to be forthright with the public on what we're doing and how we're doing it, and we're going to be honest with how we interact with them. If somebody comes up and asks me a question, I am going to be 100% honest with them with all the information that I have. I'm not going to say that I haven't misspoke on a statistic or something like that, but I can tell you it would only have been out of just ignorance on my part, or just a misunderstanding. But it would never be anything nefarious. We're going to have an open dialogue about all these things. I know it's cliche.
You guys are transparent, though. You put everything out on the table, and there's nothing hidden.
No.
There's nothing, and people can know what's going on. If they don't know, it's because they're lacking the interest, are the motivation to find out on their own.
Sure.
So if they don't know, it's because they're not doing the work themselves.
Yep. And
So,
and
because you guys are all there. All the aldermen have always responded very well to me.
good, and I love hearing that. And that's what I think local government's about. It's a bridge between. I've always said, federal and national politics. This is bleeding national politics into local politics, right? And it's tough because that's what fills our social media feeds and fills our televisions, and we're bombarded with partisan politics all day long. But at the local level, it's about you and me and our community working to do what's best here.
In our backyard.
Here, not in Washington, not in Jeff City, not in Festus. It's here. And the alderman and myself, that relationship between the resident and their local government should be a very open and honest and transparent. You keep coming back to that word, but it should be a very open dialogue between those people and their local government officials, because how else are you going to know? And how else is this board supposed to represent its voting body if those people aren't making their voices heard? And we saw the Democratic, we had probably 25 to 30 people that came a couple weeks ago, and they spoke passionately about what they believed and their concerns. How great's that? How great is it to have
really
a forum to be able to have that dialogue with their local officials, whether you're agreeing with them or not? And obviously those aren't fun. And I said that in the meeting. I said, these aren't fun situations. It's certainly not why I ran for office. I didn't run for office thinking that we were going to be, but we at the end of the day, we come back to, is this going to benefit our community? Is it going to have an impact on what we do for the community? We believe it will. Chief believes it will. And I think we have to stand by that. And if there are further concerns, or if the agreement changes, as far as if the government starts to ask for more of us or starts to change the way that they want this thing to operate, well, then that's gonna trigger another conversation, because we're not stuck in one place on this. We're still listening to the public. I want them to know.
Well, I could have been one in that crowd, honestly.
Yeah.
But I wanted to find out from you what was going on, because you just get the headline, and I want to know what's going on. That's why I wanted you to come and talk, to give us the information, so that we can have a better knowledge of what's actually going to happen. So that's why it was important for me to invite you tonight.
Well, I appreciate it, and I was happy to come and talk about it, because I do think there were things we left unsaid, and there are still things we're learning. And I think there was a lot to unpack from that meeting. I've rewatched it a couple times, just so to get a better understanding of when you're here. Well, when you're here and you're in the moment, it is hard. It's hard to take in everything that's being said, because you tend to focus on something that's being said, and you kind of latch onto that, but you may have missed the next topic that they're talking about. And so rewatching it and trying to go back and trying to uncover some of those things that we may have missed in the moment. And we're always looking to be better. We're always, I think if you're not striving to be better at anything in whatever that you're doing, are you really that passionate about it? Are you really doing the things you need to do? Are you really committed to it fully? And I think every one of our board members thinks of that the same way, is that we're taking it seriously. And if we can all learn how to approach situations better, we can all learn how, to interact with, there's so many ways, right, that we can learn from our voting public and our community about what is that information that we're taking in, and how do we take it, and how do we then put it into action and make those people proud. That's really, at the end of the day, it's all about. And
understanding each other and coming to a mutual agreement. You might not agree totally 100%, but come into a consensus where you can move forward.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, small town politics is tough, right? I mean, I look at people that were in the crowd, and I see a lot of people that I know
You can't
very
even
well.
Can't.
And I don't want to let them down. I don't want to let anybody down. And, you know, the reality of the job is that you're not going to be able to make everybody happy, and you are going to let people down here and there. But I want them to know that it doesn't mean that I'm dismissive of what they're trying to say. And I'm certainly not numb to the concern that this could create. So I don't want them to think that in any way, shape, or form. I value each and everybody's opinion, and we're going to agree on everything. And Kathy, I think, you know, in your email, I mean, you said you disagree with it, and I appreciate that.
Yeah,
And
I feel like a traitor right now, actually.
No.
But no, I think we need to understand each other.
Yeah.
And you have a right to speak, I have a right to speak, but we live in the same community, so we need to understand each other. They have a right to, I have a right to protest along with them, but
As you should.
we need to understand where we are at, and you have a right to talk, and I understand what you're saying and everything, and I think we should give it a college try, and we should see how it turns out, you know, and I understand where you guys are coming from, and I know your heart's in the right place, and I have no animosity toward anybody, but, you know, after seeing it, I just wanted you to have a chance to explain.
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
But I do respect you in the board, and I'm not against you guys at all. I'm not against you guys at all.
And I never take it like that, Kathy. And I've had friends disagree with me vehemently on certain things that we're doing at the city level. And guess what? I'm happy to listen, and we can have a dialogue. And guess what?
I don't like ice, but I understand what you're saying, that we're not going to have ice here, what we're used to seeing on TV.
We will not.
But yeah, I kind of feel like half a traitor, but I hope my friends understand that I want an explanation in a calm environment where you could speak.
No, I appreciate that. But I know you've got really important stuff to talk about, so I'll get out of your hair and I'll get in the gallery and let you guys talk.
You're fine,
But no, thank you very much for all you guys do.
Well, thank you for coming here and talking to us.
No, absolutely. Anytime, but I'll let you guys get to your topic. And
Well, thanks for explaining that.
yeah, no problem. And if anybody has any of the questions, I mean, I'm serious, just please let me know. I'm happy to talk. We'll be open and honest.
He's a good guy. He's a good guy.
Yeah,
He always is.
Thank you. All right, I'll let you guys get to talking. I'm going to listen, though.
Okay.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
You can come sit by me if you want, Vernetta. Okay, we're going to shift gears here.
You can go over there. Anna.
Huh?
If she wanted to switch seats,
Oh.
I'll stay over here.
So, I'm Kathy Kreitler. I've been on a few times, so everybody probably knows me by now. We are getting together a shelter for St. Genevieve, and our board has gotten together, and we've had several meetings. We're just about ready to send in our 501c3. After we do that, we'll send in for our, I forgot,
It's,
our qualifications to have a shelter.
qualifications.
So I've got Vernetta Melton here on my left, and she's one of the board members. She's going to talk a little bit about why we need a shelter in town. And then I have Brittany Horton over here on my right, and she is one of our survivors of domestic violence, and she's going to talk a little bit about how much her life's changed in a short amount of time. How long have you been? Just a few weeks even, huh? Has it been a month?
I would say only maybe 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
Yeah.
Okay.
About 2 weeks.
So do you want to talk first, or you want Vernetta to?
It doesn't matter to me.
So what have you learned the most since you started working with me?
I have learned that it is not my fault.
It's not your fault what you went
Yes.
through?
Yes.
Okay.
And that there are more people out there that are willing to help and be a part of your life.
And people that care about you?
And that people, yes, and people care about you. I guess, me personally, I have to get over the hurdles of knowing that not everybody is the same. And I think that's the biggest hurdle I have.
And when you say everybody's the same, you've been hurt a lot.
Yes.
And you found out that some people can be in your life that don't hurt you.
Right.
Yeah, you've been hurt by a lot of people.
And I assume, I guess, way too much that, like yourself, you would do the same thing that my past has done.
Yeah, so you thought I was just going to hurt you and let you down?
And let me down and leave.
Yeah. So we have a group that meets every week, and you've come to the group.
And what did you think about some of the girls that are in the group?
I think a lot of them have been through a lot of the stuff I've been through, and I've been through a lot of stuff they've been through, and it's incredible to just see the same things you didn't know and realize how competitive, or is that the right word? I think that's the right word. It just like repeats itself over.
Repetitive, not competitive.
Yeah.
How repetitive.
That's what I was looking for. And it's scary actually, because
it's happening so much in other people's lives.
You didn't realize how much it just, I guess it's just a cycle, like you said in some of the groups.
Yeah, and that they share a lot of the same things that you've been through.
Yeah.
And you really related with them.
Related 100%, yeah.
And you kind of already started friendships with them.
Yes.
So you've already got companionship and support from them in just a short amount of time.
Yes.
So are you glad you're part of the group?
Yes.
So you're already feeling more at home and more comfortable, and
Yes.
And she's actually sporting some nice clothes tonight. Yeah. Where'd you go shopping at today?
Was it called Bella's?
Yep, Bella Ever After.
Bella? Yeah.
She went and she got all kinds of help from Miss Linda.
Yes.
And we got to try on a bunch of stuff, and she got to pick
did.
out some things.
We did.
Yeah, so we want to thank Linda for all of that.
Yes, thank
Linda's
you.
been a great support to us.
That was fun.
And that made you feel good, didn't you?
It did.
Yeah.
It did.
Boosted up your self-esteem because we were going to come on TV, so she got to pick anything she wanted out of the store, so she got herself some things, and that was really good to make you feel better.
Yes.
Yeah, so now she got to look good tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll take the time off of you. So we'll toss it over to Vernetta. You want to go over some reasons why we need a shelter in town?
Yeah. First of all, it's better if we can keep people in the area where they're already located. They have their homes, they have their jobs, possibly. The kids are in school. You have law enforcement, you got your courts here. You need to rely on them to help you out. And these people that need these help in domestic violence, they're not the ones who have caused the problem here.
Yeah.
They shouldn't have to relocate. We need to let them stay here in the community. Some of the community benefits is the awareness that assistance is available to them. They need to be educated, and all of this needs to be brought to
Can
them.
I add on that?
Yes.
Bernetta? So you saying that, I like that you said that, because when I had first left out of mine, I left from an area, am I allowed to say?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. DeSoto, Missouri. And when I made a bunch of phone calls to all the shelters, they were so full. A lot of them would explain that you had to undress and wear their clothing because of their rules, and I guess maybe mites or bugs or whatever. I had my children were already in fear and they were scared. I was scared. Money was a tight thing. And so the last thing I could remember was, where did I feel safe? And I remember being in St. Genevieve. So that's why I came back here.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And see, staying in the community too, you don't have to use all the money for gas to travel an hour and a half away. Why? When we can set this up right here.
I agree.
I mean, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
You know?
In the state of Missouri, there was 36,762 people that were denied domestic violence services in 2024. I can't say last year because we don't have those stats yet, but that's a lot of people that were turned down. And in St. Genevieve, when I have somebody that calls and needs a shelter bed, we call up to an hour and a half away looking for a shelter bed. And sometimes we can't find a shelter bed even an hour and a half away. So having a shelter in St. Gen would be beneficial to us. And our closest shelter is in Perryville, and there's one in Bonne Terre that's 45 minutes away. But for a person in St. Genevieve to get those shelter services, they would have to drive, 45 minutes to get there. And the way a shelter works is you relocate to that community, which means they find you a job in that community, your kids go to that school, and your friends and everything, you have to relocate to that community. So you leave your support system in St. Genevieve.
Right.
Your friends and your family and your kids' friends and their sports and everything has to stay in St. Genevieve. And either you have to drive back and forth, which a lot of our people don't have the vehicles, they don't have the gas money and all of that. So if we have a shelter in town, they can stay in St. Genevieve, and hopefully we can. There's different grants out there, and there's one in particular that, well, there's several, that a landlord could get approved ahead of time, and then they can rent to domestic violence victims, kind of like HUD housing, where the grant will pay for the housing, and they can stay in St. Genevieve and get the services through the shelter. So that's a grant that there's several grants that are similar to that I really want to get, so that people can stay in St. Genevieve and still get the education and the benefits of the shelter, where they don't have to move out of town. Because a lot of people, we're a multi-generational community, and you have grandmas and aunts and friends that all help make the family work. And they also go to sports events and all that to support the kids. And so that's why having one in St. Genevieve is really beneficial.
It's really beneficial.
When you think about, 37,000 people being denied domestic violence services, that's across the state of Missouri. That's a lot of people being denied services. Domestic violence is something that is important, and we really need to service our local people.
Definitely do.
So go ahead, Vernetta. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And just to tell you a little bit about where we are as far as trying to get started with our shelter here in St. Genevieve. We've had 3 board meetings now, and as of the present, we still haven't decided on a name for our shelter. That's been a toughie for us.
We'll take ideas if anybody has any good ideas.
Yes. We do have board members, and we're all working well together, and it seems like we're really moving forward fast. We have our bylaws in order. We are just about ready to send all the paperwork off for the 501(c) or C3. And our next project will be working toward our accreditation. So we're moving forward pretty quickly.
Yeah, the shelter
To get the
accreditation.
shelter accredited. And Kathy, if you don't mind, I'm going to let you explain this because I still get it turned around.
The 501(c)(3), as far as donations, the 501(c)(3) gives you a 10% income tax credit, and then with domestic violence shelters, you can get a 70% tax credit. So when you add those together, of course, that's 80% tax credit on a donation. So once we get the shelter designation, you could get that type of donation credit, and then the 70% carries for 5 years. And that's a Missouri credit for the 70%. So if you don't use the entire donation amount on your income tax, it carries for 5 years. So that's a incentive, especially for like businesses or something, if that's later once we get going on things. But we do have an interest from the community. We've had people come forward and say that they're interested in supporting us on a larger scale. So we do have interest in,
definitely.
in people helping us out. So that's good.
Yeah.
What else do we have?
Well,
I've had some people say that they don't think it would be safe to have a shelter in St. Genevieve, and that's kind of silly. If you think about it, every shelter has a community, and the abusers are often from that community, and it's a safe place because we have law enforcement and we have courts that protect our victims, and that's everywhere in the United States. So our law enforcement's very capable of protecting our victims, and the courts support the law enforcement officers. So we're more than capable of having a safe shelter here in St. Genevieve. Also, I wanted to let everybody know that I did talk to Representative Bryant Wolfen, and he supports our shelter, and he said the disabled people and the domestic violence victims are 2 important things on his agenda. And I did have several conversations with him, and let's see, what else I can't remember what else he said. But anyway, I did talk with him, and Oh, the reason I talked to him, they had, where Governor Kehoe was going to cut $1 million off of the domestic violence shelter law on this assembly section or whatever with this legislative section. So that's why I called Representative Wolfen. And so we did have conversations about that. So I wanted to mention that. So he is on board with us too. Let's see. Did we hit most everything?
I think we tried.
Yeah, so there's a financial strain with survivors if they have to go outside of St. Genevieve. There's less travel. There's no need for a vehicle or less need for a vehicle. There's no gas or insurance costs if we have a shelter in town. They may be able to stay in their home in St. Genevieve, which means no rent costs, where if they go outside of St. Genevieve, they may have to rent a house or something once they get out of the shelter. If they would leave our shelter here in town, they might actually be able to stay in their house, but if they do go into the shelter, they might be able to go back to their home. There's no additional housing costs, or there's no incidental costs if they have to set up a house because they could maybe go back to their original house. Right. There's no additional childcare costs, and they might be able to stay with the same provider of childcare if they get to stay in St. Genevieve, or if they have to go to a shelter in another community, their children would have to go to a different child care provider, which is hard on the kids too. And then if they go to another community with the shelter, they might have additional work charges, like if they have to buy a uniform or something with a new job, where if they stay in St. Genevieve, they can stay at their employment. And a lot of people have seniority or things built up with their jobs here locally, and they will be able to keep their local jobs with their seniority and stuff if we have a shelter in town. So there's a lot of benefits to our citizens in St. Genevieve if they get to stay here. So there's a lot of benefits to a shelter in town. And part of getting a shelter would be bringing education and prevention education to our citizens. So it wouldn't necessarily just be people in the shelter that would benefit. We would be able to do outreach to the community, like to the schools and things like that. So we would be open to receiving grants for different things, not just to people in the shelter. So there's a lot of benefits to having one. That's why we're working so hard to get one. And look at Miss Brittany, just a few weeks and it's changed her quite a bit.
It's helped.
And I had some girls here a few weeks ago, and they didn't really speak, but they were wanting to speak and invite people to the group, like Brittany said, because it really has changed their lives. And you can see it, I get to see it change their lives greatly. And if we can just change a handful of people's lives, but if we had a shelter, we can really change people's lives.
It'd be
and
really impactful, yeah.
Yeah, we can really impact people's lives, and they can live violence-free, which the way domestic violence works is it breaks them away just a little bit at a time. They give up who they are just to get along, so there's not an argument, so there's not a fight, and it gives up a little bit of who they are until they wake up one day and they don't even know who they are anymore because they've given up so many pieces of themselves.
Yeah,
correct.
And that's how they realize that, oh my gosh, I'm a domestic violence victim, where they never thought of it before.
Yeah.
So being able to give them back their self-esteem and everything makes a huge difference in their lives. So that's what's important. When I was here before, when Iris isn't here, but I had talked about the cycle of abuse. I'll let you hold that. And she was curious about what the cycle of abuse is. And this cycle of abuse goes over and over and over. And it seems like it gets more intense each time that it goes around. And what it starts with is the honeymoon phase, and that's called love bombing. And that's when you meet somebody new and they think you're wonderful and you think they're wonderful. And that's when I use the dozen roses, which there's nothing wrong with the dozen roses. But if they, overcompensate for themselves, because they don't think by themselves that they're a good enough catch. They have to overcompensate, like they'll take you on a trip or do something overly outrageous, yes, because they don't feel like by themselves they're going to win you over. So that's the honeymoon phase. And then after you get past that phase, then there's a little tension building, like they might not like what you're wearing or not like what you say, like nobody thought that joke was funny and things like that. Mm-hmm. And then there's some tension building, and eventually that might come to an explosion phase, which is the bomb going off there. And the explosion phase it could be a big fight, or it might just be a disagreement or like a rubbing of your personalities or something. It doesn't have to be a fight. It can be just something that there's a shifting in the relationship. And then there's like a parting, and it could be sitting on different sides of the couch and you don't talk. Or it could be moving to a different country, and it might last for years, it might last for a week. But then you come back together and you're back in that honeymoon phase where there's some love bombing and you're in love again and there's some overcompensation. And that cycle you'll see in an abusive relationship where that just keeps rotating and it gets more and more intense.
Yeah.
You got Brittany saying yes right here.
No, it's true.
But if you find that you're in a relationship that goes like that, you might want to double look at it again and see what's going on. In a healthy relationship, things are equal and you're not going to have that circle or those big sways. A healthy relationship is going to be equal. You're going to speak your mind, they're going to speak their mind, you're going to respect each other, you're going to listen, they're going to listen, and there's going to be an equal. Whenever it's a domestic abuse type, domestic violence type situation, you're going to have someone with power and control over the other one. You're going to have somebody being submissive so there's not a fight, so there's not an argument, somebody getting along, so that there's not problems, and somebody who has to be overpowering. So there's always a power and control, which I don't have a wheel with me, but domestic violence is big on power and control wheels. We have wheels for everything. And we have like the gay and lesbian wheel, and we have the teenage wheel, and we have the disabled wheel, and all these different types of personalities and people where they break it down into exactly how people can be abused in that type of situation. And it's all about power and control, where somebody has power over another one, and it's because somebody has to have control over them. So if you're in a relationship where you feel like somebody is always putting you down, then you might want to look at that as far as if that's an abusive type situation. If you feel like you're always giving in, if you always have to give up what you need to do, like if you can't be around your friends or family because it's going to cause a big argument, or if you can't wear your hair the way you want to wear your hair, or he wants you to wear that dress or something like that, you should be able to wear what you want to wear no matter what, or wear your hair the way you want to wear your hair. And if somebody's making you do something, that's not a healthy relationship. So you need to investigate that a little bit more. You might want to talk to a friend or clergy. It doesn't have to be a full-blown where you have to go to counseling for 6 months or something like that, but you might want to look into that a little bit more. And I've got my cards here. You're welcome to call me anytime, or you can call, a friend or anybody that you would like to talk to about that. And they can even have you talk to anybody that they would reference you to, or your family doctor, or anybody can help you navigate through that a little bit. So,
And as we get more educational material out to the areas, that will be available to you as well in different areas of the community. So that's certainly our goal.
so what do we think, girls?
I think we hit a lot of points.
Yeah, I think we talked quite a bit. Let's see, 8:08.
And I think we're headed in the right direction. It just takes time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a shelter will be good in town. There's definitely a need for
It
it.
is definitely needed. A lot of your abuse, people that go through the domestic violence things, no one knows about it. I can tell you personally, I've known several different people that lived in this town and had no idea this person had been abused and was being abused in a domestic violence situation for years. And they thought that the abuser in the community was an upstanding person. And when it's hidden, you have no idea. So it definitely occurs, folks. You can close your eyes to it if you want to, but it's here.
Yeah, a lot of abusers are very personable, and they look really good and everything, because when you fall in love with them, that's the person you fall in
Yes.
love with, and they always want that person to come back, and that's a lot of times why the victim stays with them. Is because, and when people talk about an abuser, they think they're gonna have fur and horns and the whole bit, but they're really good-looking people.
Yes, most of them are.
Yeah,
They're just hidden behind hidden faces,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
yeah. And an abuser doesn't necessarily, it doesn't have to mean that your relationship has to be over with. Everything is, fluid and things like that, but it needs to be addressed. If you're in an abusive situation, it needs to be addressed, and then you can go from there and evaluate things at that point. But just because a situation is abusive doesn't have to mean that things need to be ended or things, a behavior can be addressed and go from there. So don't think because you had an abusive situation that if you bring attention to it, that you have to get a divorce or leave or whatever. Each situation's different. So getting help for yourself and bringing attention and learning ways to cope and learning about the situation is key. And then when you have that knowledge, you can make changes or do whatever you want to do at that point. But key is to take care of yourself. And we actually have self-care nights, which you haven't been there yet, but we have self-care nights too. We make jewelry and do crafts and things like that too. You haven't been there for that
Interesting.
yet. But taking care of yourself is something that domestic violence survivors don't really know how to do because
No.
they sacrifice so much and they don't get any attention on them at all.
No.
So we give them some attention on their own. So
That'll be different.
It's a good idea sometimes to pay attention to what people say to you, and you can pick up on their difficulties
yeah,
and do it in a way that's helpful to them without being an embarrassing situation as well.
yeah, to be a friend.
Yes.
And if you think
to be a friend or direct them to someone you know that can help them.
If you think somebody's in a domestic violence situation, the best thing you can do is be there for them. Just to let them know that you're there and they can call and talk to you anytime they want. The worst thing you can do is get mad at them because you're frustrated that they stay in that situation and walk away from them, because that makes them even more dependent on their abuser. And so that isolates them even more because the abuser's trying to isolate them. A lot of times they won't let them have a job. What they'll say is, oh, you don't need to work. You can stay home with the kids, or I'll take care of you. And it sounds good at first, but what that turns into is isolation, where they're stuck at home and he turns into not letting them work, and then he won't give them gas money, or he won't let them have the car, or they'll sell the car because they don't really need it, and then they get more and more isolated. So the best thing you can do is to be there no matter what, and then if you can have them call somebody who might be able to help, they can call me, or they can go to their doctor, talk to their clergy, or another friend that might have a little bit of experience or something. But you don't want to walk away from them because that'll just isolate them more.
That's true.
So, okay, I think that does it. Well, thank you so much for your time, and Iris will be here next time. But it was good having you tonight. You guys have a good evening, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.